If you could coach every struggling agent on one mistake that you see repeated over and over again, what would that be?
I think average agents confuse the concept of being busy with consistency. You know, it's easy to look busy or feel busy in this business, but those that truly succeed are consistent with their prospecting. So I think, you know, it's easy to write a handwritten note once. It's easy to write, you know, a newsletter and maybe send out 2 newsletters and think, I didn't get an opportunity out of that. I'm going to bag it, do a video and post it on social 1 or 2 times and walk away from it without feeling a reward. Consistency in developing those habits, even if you don't see immediate gratification, you will see it over time.
Hey everybody, this is Jason Ostrowski, and welcome to another episode of the Everything Real Estate Podcast. What if you could step back and view the real estate industry from 36,000 feet? What patterns would you see? More importantly, what separates the agents who consistently dominate their markets from everyone else? Today, I'm joined by Brad Patt, Regional President of Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices, Fox & Roach, and the Trident Group. In his leadership role, Brad has a front row seat to the daily habits, mindset, and business strategies of many of the most successful real estate professionals in the industry. Few people have the opportunity to observe excellence at this scale, and today he's sharing the common traits, winning behaviors, and key lessons that separate top producers from the pack. Whether you're a brand new agent or seasoned veteran looking for some inspiration, this conversation is filled with insights that can help elevate your business to the next level. So let's get right into it with this week's special guest, Brad Patt. Well, with me today is probably the most handsome man in a sport jacket that I know. His name is Mr. Brad Patt, Regional President at Fox & Roach and the Trident Group. Brad, it's great to have you in studio, man. How you been?
Jason, it's a true privilege to be here with you, my friend. So thank you for having me. And I've got to thank Rajiv for a couple of my sport coats in my library. So
I'll tell you what, Rajiv was the sport coat king. That is definitely
for sure.
True. Well, it's great to see you again. I know it's been a while since we've had you on the podcast, but it's great to have you back.
Thank you.
And so today, you and I are kind of going to break down because you have a very unique perspective. And I remember this in my time in management. I got to see kind of from 36,000 feet from above, you know, what were the successful agents doing in their business to drive their business, to get more business, and ultimately be very successful. And since you see that from a regional perspective, I thought this would be a great episode to kind of break that down with you.
Love it.
So why don't we start with this? What are you currently hearing? Because, you know, the market right now is kind of all over the place.
It is.
So let's start with what you're hearing regionally, at least, or in our footprint, about the market from today's agents. Do you hear any overarching themes when you speak to people in our region?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's something, you know, as you noted, at 36,000 feet, but locally, you hear the real story. And it's a market that is unique to this marketplace. I think all markets are really important to be studied at a local level. If you look at the national headlines, one might walk away as a consumer thinking that we're in a seller's market, price reductions, and abundance of inventory, and that's simply not the case locally. In our suburban markets, I serve the Lehigh Valley, Bucks, Montgomery, and Center City. Our suburban markets, we're really seeing a continued seller's market with month supply ranging between 1.4 month supply to 2.3 month supply. And now to keep that in perspective, month supply means at the current pace of sales, it would take 1.4 months to consume all the inventory. Mm-hmm. On the backdrop of that a bit is the city. We're at a 3.8 month supply, and the National Association of Realtors acknowledges a normal market, not a seller's market, not a buyer's market, somewhere between 5 and 6 months. So still a seller's market. I think it's very important, though, that sellers keep in mind when they're preparing their home for market that they price it effectively.
100%.
100%. I think as buyers, you know, look at interest rates, look at affordability, buyers are a bit more selective than they might have been historically. So it's important to the buyer community that the property be well priced, well staged, and from a seller standpoint, that they put care in how they launch the property on the market and truly leverage the open market and all the marketing assets that a true professional can provide. So the market, nationally may be more of a balanced market, or in some locations, a buyer's market. We're still very much in a seller's market, but a price-sensitive market. And I really believe in letting the market dictate the value. So you put it on at a responsible price, and the effective price that the market yields will be found.
I think you hit the mark with what you're saying in terms of pricing it sharply.
Yeah.
Buyers are more discerning, which is absolutely true in the buyers that I've been working with. I feel like the buyer's mindset is, if I'm going to pay 6.5, 6.75 in my interest rate, then I want a home inspection again. They're trying to claw back that leverage.
Yeah.
They're willing to pay a premium if they see the value there.
Amen.
And that's where pricing is really, really important to what we do in the day-to-day.
Yeah, and I think, coming back to pricing, to price the property at market and let the market dictate the actual value, I see more frequency of sellers getting over-ask in that method versus pricing slightly above the market and the property languishing for a period of time.
Without a doubt. I feel like even if you overprice by, say, $25,000 on a, everything's on a scale, right?
Sure.
So let's just say $25,000 on a $600,000 home. You see less showings, less offers, and less of what the seller wants to see, in terms.
Yeah.
So as region president, you have the unique opportunity to observe agents day to day.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, what are the biggest differences you notice between agents who consistently dominate their markets and those who simply survive in their market?
Yeah, that's a fundamental question of success in our industry.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It truly is.
Yeah.
And I think that the top producers I witness and I see frequently that are year in, year out, likely achieving more sales this year than they did the prior year, they're not waking up wondering what they're going to do with their day. They're waking up with a clear plan of how to execute the business. They start the year with a business plan, or at minimum a goal. They follow that pipeline of business through the year, tracking all their fundamental key metrics. They understand their current listing inventory, their future listing inventory, cultivating those future listings. They track their current pipeline of pendants and make sure that, all ducks are in a row in those transactions. And they know exactly where they stand year to date on closed units, closed volume, and closed gross commission income, and they keep in tune with that throughout the year. So, I think it's really approaching the business as a business and knowing what the daily greatest return on investment activities need to be to keep that funnel filled.
Well, there's someone in my household that I think her name is Ann Tulloch.
I might know her
and
to a degree.
She may say that I have an unhealthy obsession about my numbers. And I, as listeners of this podcast probably know, I do keep track daily. I am looking at my numbers, looking at my production, looking at my warm list, looking at my transactions. Where is the business going to come from 3 months from now? What am I doing in my pipeline? You are so right that once I started doing that in my own career, because early on I was kind of scattershot and all over the place. And once I really honed in on just making a business plan, that changed everything in my career. Yeah. Everything. It may seem so simple, but it is absolutely fundamental to what we do every day.
It truly is. And that is a pivotal moment that you achieved. And you saw it like a beacon, that it truly changed your trajectory. I think, unfortunately, average agents manage transactions and elite agents manage a business.
Yes.
And they, again, approach it as a business.
That's a great answer. So when you look at the very best agents in our company, are there 2 or 3 habits that almost all of them share regardless of their personality, experience, or the market that we're in?
I think elite agents, do 3 things very well. They invest in relationships constantly, nurturing their client base. Nothing gets in the way of that prospecting moment. They protect their schedule. What's in their schedule is what's going to happen that day. An emergency with a transaction's not going to defer them from prospecting and continuing on the path that's going to cultivate the future pipeline. And I think they protect their mindset. They think about their work-life balance. They invest in their education about the industry. They invest in their personal well-being. You and I are members of Fitbox Tribe. It's been a little quiet these days, and we need to be sure that we're taking care of ourselves first and keeping that mindset optimal.
I agree with you. And, I think if I could just be, completely honest, I think one of the things that I have to manage in my own life is burnout, right? Because I feel like it's just go, 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 go. And then I look up and it's 3 months later. And some of my personal relationships have suffered. Some of my friends are mad at me. Some of my relatives are mad at me that they haven't seen me. And so you're so right. I think you do have to find that work-life balance and do your best to take that personal time when you can.
We all have, personal capacity, whether that's time spent at work, time spent in our personal lives, in our relationship. It's critical that we be mindful of to be our best selves at work. We've got to have the right mindset in all aspects of life. I don't have the silver bullet. I'm still trying to figure it out. But, it's critical that we think and act that way, that we preserve our mindset and protect it.
Agreed. All right. So you've seen agents in similar markets with similar resources and even similar opportunities to produce dramatically different results, right? So what separates the agent who closes, say, 5 transactions from the one who closes 50?
I think, again, 5-deal agents ask, what do I need to do today? And 50-deal agents ask, what systems do I need to improve today? I think working globally on your business and having, for example, standard operating procedures as it relates to, I've got a buyer call, I'm going to be going out on a buyer consultation. I want to demonstrate my absolute value as an independent agent or a team. I've got a standard operating procedure with a checklist of questions. I'll ask that buyer, presentation items about my testimonials, my resume, and I know what I'm going to do. It's not recreated each and every time. Same holds true for a listing presentation. Same holds true from the moment an agreement goes under contract through settlement. I have an SOP for all of that. So I think fine-tuning and working on my systems, taking a step back and realizing where I might be able to delegate is critical. I was talking with our friend Lisa Wright recently. She runs a number of great training opportunities and collaboration opportunities with numerous agents. And one thing that she's really been touching on is capacity. We all have, again, a limit of capacity. So thinking about your average hourly rate, if you divide your income by your, hours worked in a week, you're going to get down to your average hourly rate. If you can delegate tasks to individuals that may be less costly than your hourly rate, do so and focus on where your time's best spent. What are the highest return on investment minutes and hours you can spend to continue to improve your business?
For years and years, even to this day, I'm trying my best to delegate as much as I can.
It's tough to lose that control.
It is. I am such a micromanager, and I really need to stop doing. I mean, I know this, right? It's just a matter of doing it. And so I have hired someone who I consider to be my operations manager, and I'm focusing on those $300, $400, $500 an hour activities as opposed to the 25 or 10, 15, whatever you want to say, the lower end activities, and delegate that to her. One thing that strikes me in talking to some of the top teams in our company, I think we're, blessed to have such top producing agents throughout the country, that I'm obviously fortunate enough to talk to on this podcast. And it all strikes me, they're so systematic.
Yes.
And most of them, not all of them, but most of them, just like you said, have that SOP, that standard operating procedure that they have for every aspect of the business. And if you really want to scale to that large degree, if that's your ultimate goal, then you have to think about doing that day in and day out, right?
It takes time to create the SOPs originally, but once you have them, you tweak them along the way. They pay dividends over time. And again, I think, the average agent takes it in stride and just creates it on at will, at need, rather than taking the time to create a system that I'm going to do every buyer consultation, every listing presentation, every agreement to close, and thinking about what do I do redundantly and how can I make this more efficient for me in the long term, and it can be replicated each and every event.
100%. So one thing that we can do is, and I know that I'm going to beat a dead horse here, but it's so true that if you're looking to become more systematic, get more off your plate, to be able to delegate easier, then technology and AI are the way to go, right? And it's changing how our industry operates at an incredible pace. So from your vantage point, how are the best agents using these tools to create an advantage instead of feeling overwhelmed day to day?
Yeah, I mean, it's and I don't want to say a beaten horse, but we all understand that AI isn't going to replace good agents. It's going to help us be more efficient. And that's the key to me, to leveraging AI, is finding the efficiencies that can be gained. Applying them to standard operating procedures, uploading what you do to AI, and developing a great checklist on a listing transaction management element. AI can be so powerful in many ways to drive those efficiencies and allow agents to then go back into what they do best, and that's creating and nurturing relationships. So I think thinking about the mundane that you do daily, and how can you make that more efficient with the leverage of AI, whether it's Chat, Gemini, whatever your AI du jour is, there's a lot of AI options out there. Personally, I use WhisperFlow. It's taken a lot of time away from me typing responses on email or text. And I know technology changes frequently, but today WhisperFlow is saving me a lot of time. I do use Pod, and I believe you have in the past as well, to summarize notes and summarize listing appointments. With the seller's authorization, it can be a great way to follow up on what the conversation was, key highlights from the conversation, and to know that the seller, acknowledged something that you've paid attention to, and it's now memorialized in a document. But I think AI approaching it in a fashion where you're driving efficiencies, so it allows you to, again, nurture, create those relationships. To me, that's really where our business is going to continue, through relationship building.
I think the easiest place to see the effect of AI on what we can do day to day is in our email. Right now, we see Gemini fixing my bad grammar all the time.
I'm greatly appreciative for that.
I was just going to say, it makes me actually sound smart for a change, which I know is not easy to do. So I'm kind of, looking at that, looking at again, when it comes to AI, how, like you said, efficiencies. So listing appointments, I can give a 30-day AI marketing plan. I could do MLS descriptions. These are the things that are low-hanging fruit that will improve your business quickly and be able to get you back out there with your clients, right?
Truly. Yes. Using it to analyze the market. We all understand that it can be used to help develop good marketing remarks, but AI proof them and review them in detail. But there's a lot of market analysis and listing presentation, marketing strategy that can be gained.
Yep, and bios and all that. And you mentioned WhisperFlow. I know Rajiv is a huge fan of WhisperFlow. I know I heard him talk about that some months ago, and that's great in itself. So how you use it really is up to you, but think about it as your personal assistant that you can give stuff to, and they can get back to you instantaneously,
100%.
With an answer. So, okay. So do you find the agents who dominate their market spend more time chasing new business or deepening the relationships with the people already in their sphere, or is it both?
I think the best agents have the luxury of going after less cold leads. They nurture their existing leads. I look at top producers, and many of them have a very clear forever customer list, to quote Alan Dalton. Thinking about the forever client concept, nurturing your existing client base over time is going to yield not only business from them, but also their referrals. If you nurture that one lead that you might have gotten from an open house, over time, they could yield 10 referral opportunities. So I think most successful agents do go after both existing clients and cold opportunities. But the key is getting those new leads, those cold opportunities that are fresh, into your database, nurturing them over time, and leveraging the referrals that can be gained from both audiences. So again, I think a lot of agents go after both existing leads and nurture those clients. I'm lousing this answer up. I'm going to pause right here.
No, you're fine. You're fine, man. No, I see it as two buckets, right? Yeah. You do have to get some new clientele, right? You can't just count on the people that have been in your sphere forever. But those people that have been in your sphere, you have to make sure to hug on them, get in front of them as much as possible. Have those, potential client events, or go grab a cup of coffee with them. Make sure that you go to see them, check in with them. I am about to go under contract on a property today with a client that I love, but I would consider to be a serial mover at this point, right? Which is great. That's probably the best case scenario for us as agents, right? But we're about to go under contract on probably our 5th or 6th house together.
Fantastic.
Which is crazy.
It is.
Right? And I love them to death. They're one of those raving fans that, I know would recommend me to anybody, and it's because of the relationships that I've nurtured with those types of clients over the years that keeps my business steady 100%. And growing, you know. But I don't forget to get myself out there with my marketing, and like you said, I'm not gonna cold call people. That's just not my thing.
Sure.
But in terms of getting your stuff out to your farming area, or doing stuff on Google, or AI search, just making sure that you can be found easily by people that you don't know. I had somebody call me from California, actually, through an AI search recently, about one of my properties. And it just blows me away how these people somehow, some way, find you if you do the right things.
And I think that you touched on a number of great things. A lot of agents, especially newer to the business, may think cold calling is the only way to develop new leads. And obviously, farming is a critical way that we've all found success in, open houses, keeping your bios absolutely current on all portals, and, putting yourself out there on social, and do an AI review of how you rank in the marketplace and leverage AI to help you rank higher. Taking those cold leads, or those new leads, I should say, that are coming inbound, is a great way to continue to develop current and future referrals. So it's just critical, I think, that we pay attention to nurturing our existing client base, and then also seek out ways to add to that database and nurture those leads over time.
Well, as well as I do, being around the business as long as we've been around, that there's no magic bullet. There's 100 different ways to become a successful real estate agent. So if you could coach every struggling agent on one mistake that you see repeated over and over again, what would that be?
I think average agents confuse the concept of being busy with consistency. It's easy to look busy or feel busy in this business, but those that truly succeed are consistent with their prospecting. So I think, it's easy to write a handwritten note once. It's easy to write, a newsletter and maybe send out 2 newsletters and think, I didn't get an opportunity out of that. I'm going to bag it. Do a video and post it on social 1 or 2 times and walk away from it without feeling a reward. Consistency in developing those habits, even if you don't see immediate gratification, you will see it over time. So doing those kind of mundane tasks that don't sound very sexy but are critical to every successful agent's success is really where I see the difference, is that those, the agents at the top are doing those mundane tasks day in, day out. They're reaching out to their client base. They're not seeing an immediate return. And as an individual, you touched on it. I was never a cold calling individual when I was an active practitioner. I loved writing handwritten notes. Today, I do video texts to check in with great real estate professionals such as you. I enjoy video. Find what you enjoy. Find where you feel comfortable maintaining that touch with your client base, and then do it consistently, and maybe add one more that may be a little less comfortable, and add that to your repertoire, and make sure that you're out with your client base.
So I've read a couple books recently, and one kind of came very recently to me through actually social media, I was on Instagram, and I saw this video with Nick Sirianni, right, head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, talking about a book called Chop Wood, Carry Water.
Yeah.
And basically that book is about falling in love with the process and not the end result, right? It's the process, the day-to-day, the consistency that gets you to where you want to go, and falling in love with doing that. And hearing you speak about this, and it's so true that consistency is the number one thing in our business. It doesn't matter what you do it consistently, and it's going to produce results, you know? And so planting those seeds, whatever metaphor you want to talk about. But that book talks about exactly what you just said. And I can't think of a better way to think about real estate than fall in love with the process every day.
You have to.
And what you do.
And get comfortable with it.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what you're going to be doing every day, having a plan, putting it on your schedule, having a Google Calendar. I know I'm useless without my Google Calendar.
Die by my Google Calendar. 100%.
Exactly. So you've watched producing agents go through great markets and difficult markets. What is the mindset? Because now we're getting into that mindset frame. So what is the mindset you see that keeps the best performers consistent when everyone else is reacting emotionally to the day-to-day?
Yeah, I think step one is, they stay grounded regardless of the success they achieve. I think very importantly, they know their value, and they establish that value in commission discussions, in listing and buyer presentations, and they are able to articulate their value without fail. A lot of that comes back to the standard operating procedures, the systems that they have behind them, that they're going to truly deliver a great experience each and every time. I think that top agents that are always successful are always learning. They're hungry to learn, collaborate with other top agents. I think that's one of the great features of our company, that we have an abundance mindset, and that we truly are looking for, each other to succeed and to share techniques that are working. And that's mission critical. I think that, as a practitioner, to surround yourself with people that you admire, people that are willing to lift you and to share, new prospecting ideas or what's working in their business, is essential for us to all embrace. I think that, again, those top individuals monitor their capacity, they delegate where needed, and they know their numbers, as we've admitted. Having a clear plan, having a clear goal, and monitoring that plan throughout the year, understanding what pivots I need to make, what adjustments to the plan might need to be made, is absolutely critical to that success. And I think very importantly, they don't let today's transaction, if there's a fall through, if they didn't get a listing, it doesn't bother them to any great degree. They move on, they've got a plan, and they know that this is a long game. And they have faith in the long game and all the steps needed to take to get to that end outcome.
It took me years to emotionally get past a tough transaction. Something that
you're not alone.
Early in my career, I used to be on a team with an agent named Jane Douglas in my office, and Jane's been around forever.
Sure.
I love Jane to death, and Jane used to have a tough transaction. It used to fall through, and I'd be like, Jane, how can you stand it? Don't you just want to, give this person the business? Right. The other agent or who you ever perceive to be responsible for it falling through. Yeah. She said, no, you can't get tied to the outcome of your transactions. You just have to go on to the next one and just let it go. And for a long time, I had a really, really hard time doing that early in my career, especially when, point blank, these transactions are how you eat,
sure,
right? But you do have to have that mindset and work on it every day to just keep moving forward, put one foot in front of the other. And you talked about Lisa Wright earlier. I'm going to give Lisa another shout out on this podcast because she told me to read a book called Soundtracks by John Acuff. Yeah. And I just finished Soundtracks, and it's great. And it talks about your mindset, your value, knowing what you're worth, and basically positive affirmations to get you started each day.
Truly.
Right? And so I've been doing my affirmations. I've always been big on that, and it's helped me throughout my career that when you do go through those tough times, you can lean on that. Know that you have the experience and the value as an agent to carry you through those rough experiences and get you to the other side.
It's really critical that, again, we touched on mindset earlier, and you've got to carry that positive mindset. And I'm not going to lie, setbacks you lost a listing and it was a close friend of yours, whatever the case may be, you've got to look at the long game. And I think the tools, as you've acknowledged, are critical to remain positive affirmations, whatever it takes to keep your mindset and know that you've got a great value to offer and that you will win in the long run.
And I think the longer that you're in this business, you can lean on those experiences to say, this happened and it really sucks, but
it stung a bit, but I'm picking myself up.
But you keep moving forward, right? What's the sense in wallowing about something?
For sure.
So, all right. So there seems to be a lot of noise in the industry. You had touched a little bit on this earlier, but brokerages and portals are fighting, data sharing disputes all over the place, private exclusives.
Yeah.
The list goes on and on. So what advice would you give agents regarding the constant chatter and noise that we always seem to hear as a daily occurrence right now in our industry?
I think this is mission critical for agents, again, coming back to mindset, to stay positive. We've got to understand that the consumer doesn't know what portal is arguing with what brokerage. The consumer doesn't know what data feed is not being sent to what portal. The consumer cares about trusted advice, guidance, a professional to guide them through one of the biggest financial decisions that they make every 10 to 13 years, or in your client's case, more frequently than that.
Yeah, right.
But, in all honesty, the consumer doesn't care about that. They care about who's going to give them the trusted advice, who's going to be the best consultant, the best real estate professional to guide them through one of their biggest financial transactions. And look, we all need to pay attention to what's going on in the industry, but we don't need to be distracted by it in our day-to-day practice. We need to focus on the relationships we have with our clients. And if we have a great relationship, those bonds won't be broken by private exclusive listings or whatever the topic du jour is. They'll be bound by the prospecting efforts I'm making today and referrals and leads tomorrow. And it's that trust that we need to continue to gain by the consumer and our client base.
Well, I know I'm old enough in this business to remember several what was considered to be several existential threats to our industry.
We were going to go, by the way, like the travel agency?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And my response always is to just keep doing what you're doing.
Amen.
Just keep your head down, keep going, and like you said, focus on those client relationships, focus on doing right by your clients. You're going to be perfectly fine. No matter what comes along, we're not going anywhere. And so I firmly do believe that. I know that there's smart people out there that are smarter than me in this industry who believe that. And so that's what I'm leaning on, So, all right. So because you've coached and managed so many professionals, what's one lesson about leadership that every real estate agent should apply to running their own business?
I think the key and foundation of a successful career is realizing each and every real estate professional is the CEO of their own business. They're not a real estate agent. They are truly the CEO of their business, and the sky's the limit. I think looking at your business as a CEO and understanding what I'm doing for marketing, what am I doing to track expenses and to monitor my marketing budget and to really think about this business, once again, as a business and approaching it with a CEO mindset is one thing that agents as leaders need to focus on. I think, as I look at the landscape between average agents and top producing agents, those top producing agents truly understand what their margins are on their marketing budget, what their expenditures are, what they're doing to, create the greatest return on prospecting investments, how they're cultivating relationships with clients, whether it's a customer appreciation event or multiple or gifts at variety of holidays with pop-by items. They're running their business like a business all the way through. And I think that's mission critical. And I don't think enough agents give their business that attention that they deserve to give it.
I know this is a very simple kind of mindset thing that I like to think about when it comes to my business. And I've mentioned this on this podcast before. I've mentioned this when dealing with other agents. But if you just simply picture yourself as a pizza shop.
Yeah.
How do I get people in the door?
Yeah.
What kind of marketing do I need to do to get them to buy a slice from me?
Yeah.
What's going to differentiate me from the pizza place down the street? And I always like to think in those terms because, like you said, like we don't think of ourselves as a legitimate business. Yes, we're a business, but conceptually, if we just think of ourselves as, a brick and mortar retail shop, like how are we going to get people in our door, right?
It's a great analogy.
Yeah. So I like to do that. It really, truly helps me think about what I'm going to do next.
Do you enjoy pizza, Jason?
I love a good slice of pizza, but my carb load on a daily basis is probably not where anybody should want it to be. You know what I mean? All right. So if we have this conversation again 5 years from now, what skills do you believe will define the next generation of dominant real estate agents?
I think it really comes down to the foundation of success. Nothing changes in real estate when it comes to relationships. I think today, 5 years ago, 5 years into the future, it's all about cultivating relationships. Will AI impact our business? I think it'll drive efficiencies. It won't replace the human touch. Technology, to me, is going to continue to be a commodity, but trust will be a premium. I think the more that you can position yourself as a market expert, the more you reach out to your client base with care and professionalism, acknowledging what is going on with the market, being the resource for market statistics, and truly cultivating those relationships over time, that will go unchanged 5 years from now.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, the younger generation, who is typically the most tech savvy that we see out there, has access to all this information.
Truly.
They are the ones that want a genuine human being.
Isn't that amazing?
The most to advise them.
Yeah.
And so we're not going anywhere, and I think, like you said, 5 years from now, the efficiencies will be greater, hopefully.
Absolutely.
Hopefully we'll be more systematic in what we do day to day, but that's not going to change our relationships and what we do.
Agreed.
All right. So from your 36,000 foot view, if every realtor listening could commit to changing just one habit this week that would have the biggest impact on their business over the next 5 years, what would you tell them to do?
I'm a big fan of Darren Hardy and his book, The Compound Effect. And he has a great daily email that you can subscribe to called the Darren Daily email. But in Darren Daly's Compound Effect book, the simplicity of doing positive actions daily compounded over time, writing one more handwritten note each day, writing one more video check-in or developing one more video check-in, reaching out for a referral request each day. That compound effect over the next 10 years would be profound if an agent took that into action. So it's really those simple daily actions that get negated by the gotta minutes, the urgent and not, the important, that I think impact too many agents. If you stick to your efforts daily, your prospecting efforts, and you make one more simple effort compounded over time, that's going to yield profound results for you into the future.
That's that +1 that we used to talk about, right? And I like to think about that too. What can I do extra today? Just one more thing extra that'll drive my business and do right by me, right? And what I'm trying to achieve.
I think all too often, Jason, agents are looking for a silver bullet that's going to change the trajectory of their business. And the more I look at the landscape of our industry, those that are successful are, again, tweaking their systems, but they're not doing anything outside the ordinary. They're reaching out to their client base. They're doing what many may consider the mundane or the boring, but they're doing it with consistency, and the results do follow.
Absolutely. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. You can see it time and time again. Like you said, you have access to all these agents and what they're doing. And many of them do vastly different things.
Truly.
With their business. But it's that consistency and going that extra mile to make sure that they're working on their business every day. Yeah. All right. So before we get out of here,
yes,
little birdie told me that you are currently watching 80s movies with your daughter. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is.
So we're going to do a bonus speed round to end this podcast together. And I hope you're up for it because these are very challenging questions.
I can imagine they will be.
Okay. So I'm going to start it off. You don't think about it too hard.
Yeah.
All right. Just whatever comes to mind.
Put my 80s cap on and we'll get back into the mindset.
All right. So I'm going to ask you, Favorite 80s movie?
Fast Times at Richmond.
I love it. I love it. Great start. All right. Favorite 90s band?
Ooh, In Excess.
Oh, I love it. All right. You and I are going to be best friends.
There we
at
are.
the end of this podcast.
That's
All
right.
Name one irrational fear that you have.
An irrational fear that
I'll go first. I'm going to tell you mine. Mine is deep water. I do not like being in an ocean, deep water. This scares me to death.
This is a good one. I used to go spelunking, cave diving.
Get out. Are you serious?
Out by Crystal Cave out towards Kutztown, Pennsylvania. Wear a little light, climb into these caves, cruise around. We were probably 18 years old. Today, I'm slightly claustrophobic, and there's no way on earth you would get me back into one of those caves.
That is a great one. I love that. All right, so the age-old question, is a hot dog a sandwich?
Ooh. Well, it's a questionable meat, that's for sure. I think you can slice and dice it either way. You can put it in a roll, make it a sandwich. I think it's a standalone meal for many.
Yeah. I think it's its own thing. I can't commit to it.
I don't know that we want to know what it is, but it tastes pretty darn good when it's well done.
That is very true. That is very true. All right. So is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
It is to me.
Excellent.
Yes.
Love it.
Yes, along with Christmas Vacation, which happens to be my favorite movie
Christmas Vacation is a great one. So every year I have a client event, and we want to do a holiday movie every year, and I desperately want to do Die Hard.
I think you should.
For the kids involved,
well, depending on the audience. If it's age appropriate.
Maybe we have an adult screening of Die Hard separately. I don't know. All right, so next one. Cilantro, delicious or disgusting?
I'm not a big veggie guy, so if it's hidden well enough, I guess it can be delicious.
Well, it doesn't taste like soap to you. Is that fair to say?
When it's immersed in other ingredients, I don't really take note to it, but I wouldn't eat a stick of cilantro on its own.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Since you have kids, what's your favorite slang word or phrase you've learned from your children?
Dad, you are so... fill in the blank. There's a number of them.
See, I think of Riz when it comes to you,
I don't get Riz, that's for sure. Yeah, I'm sorry I don't have a better answer to this. I'm so used to eye rolling, which is nonverbal. Yeah, it's a good question.
I think you need to think on that one because
my son talks about his fit on occasion.
Okay, all right.
I assume that's his attire, but.
Well, I tell you, I am so anytime that I consider myself still youthful or young,
I'd like to, but I don't.
I just listen to someone who's 18 talk, and then
puts it in perspective.
Then I feel very old. Yes. All right.
Imagine how I feel then.
Well, let me ask you this one: who's the funniest person at Fox and Roach?
Oh, wow. Could be Rick Martel.
Rick is a pretty funny guy.
Bob Kelly's got a great sense of humor.
Bob cracks me.
And Jason, you're up there as well, man.
Thanks, brother. Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah. All right.
Who would you answer with that?
Oh, question? Man, I don't know. There's so many, just
there's
awesome.
Some good dry humor.
I will tell you, one of our prosperity people cracks me up, and that's Jake Cole.
I've heard
Jake
humorous responses from Jake.
That I talk to.
Yeah. I can go with that.
It's because he's out there. I love him. All right. Favorite convention city and why?
Nashville, by far. Love the music, love the vibe, good food. I'm not a big Vegas guy. I don't gamble, so Nashville would be top of the list. And it's on the East Coast.
Yeah, I think I might join you on that one. I loved Nashville. Anyway, Brad, I just want to, obviously thank you for coming on the podcast. It's always good to do this with you. Good to catch up from time to time. I know we get to chat often, but it's always great to have you in this setting, getting your knowledge and dropping, some tips and pointers for people that they can take advantage of in their business.
Jason, I want to thank you for all you do for our industry, for our company. You're an amazing talent, and it's a true honor to be here. So thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
And I always love catching up with you. So I appreciate it.
Likewise. Well, I'll be seeing you soon. I'll be talking to you.
Look forward to it.
That's it. Well, that's it for this week's episode. We will be back in another couple of weeks with a new topic, a new guest, and as always, if you want to hear something that we haven't covered yet, please reach out to me, jason.ostrowski@foxroach.com. And if you haven't liked or subscribed to our podcast yet or checked us out on YouTube, please do so. It helps us to reach more people. Once again, this is Jason Ostrowski saying stay safe out there, stay selling, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Everything Real Estate Podcast.